It's 7 o'clock on Monday, March 24th, 2014. Let me call the Boothbay Harbor Selectmen's meeting to order. Please join me by standing and pledging allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first order of business is to introduce the board. We have Kaylee Bigos, our recording secretary, town manager Tom Wooden, and select persons J.D. Warren, Russ Hoffman, Denise Griffin, and I'm Bill Hamblin. The next order of business is to approve the minutes of our March 10th, 2014 meeting. I would entertain a motion.
Move we approve.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? The minutes are approved. The next order of business is financials, and Julia Latter, where did she go? She's hiding back there.
Way in the back.
Our finance officer will present. Julia, you have the floor.
Okay, you have your expenditures and revenues before you. Tonight's revenue total is $6,795,639. Total expenses year to date, $5,505,819. Does anyone have any questions regarding the revenue or expenses? As of today, we've collected 93% of our taxes. The second installment was due on March 14th.
I mean, it looks from the graph like we're actually a little bit ahead of last year.
We are a little bit ahead. As far as expenses, April 10th, we had the normal typical bills, so we're about 4 days behind in the graphic compared to this time last year, but
Okay.
we are ahead.
We are looking at small differences. The width of the line is probably. Any other questions for Julia? No?
And a total accounts payable, $212,475. And the bank balance, $3,251,909.
Julia, thank you. Any other questions? No? Looks good.
Sorry.
Phone. That brings us to the next order of business, which is town manager announcements. Tom, you have the floor.
Thank you. Other than the things that are actually on the agenda that we're going to talk about tonight, I just wanted to let you know that the former Snowman House on Campbell Street has been taken down. I put pictures at your desk for you there, as directed at the last meeting. So that is down in preparation of the Water District's project on Campbell Street. They're going to be using that as a staging area. That's all I have for announcements at the moment.
Tom, can I ask what's going to happen to that land after you're done with it?
You sure can. I have no idea. At this point, we've just taken it down. I don't know, we haven't decided what we're doing with it yet.
You don't know if it will go for sale or...
The board hasn't made a decision on that.
We talked about it at the last meeting, and I think Russ nicely summarized the options. Either it'll go up for auction, or the town could decide to try and put in a public space, either a park or something there. But that has not been decided. And we would welcome any input or suggestions from the audience. Sir?
I'm co-owner of the property, 24 Summit Road, which is immediately above the Snowman property. Can you tell me to what degree of disruption there will be for the occupants of the abutting property by the use of that property for a project?
Well, it's probably better answered by John Ziegler from the Water District since it's his project, but it's my understanding that it's going to be used just as a storage area during the project. As far as how it would disturb on either side, I think John would be better able to answer that for you.
Is there an indication of how long this project will take?
I think he told me he wanted to have it done by June 1st, prior to June 1st, if I remember correctly.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this topic? other announcements, Tom?
No, that's it. The other things are on the agenda.
Okay. Speaking of the agenda, let me just note that since this agenda was written, we've had two other things come before us, and if it's okay with the board, we might consider those tonight. One is accepting the Public Works job descriptions. This is a task that we dove into probably 2 months ago and then kind of lost track of it. But it's something we ought to do, and we all have copies of that, and so we might consider that when we, later on this evening. And the other thing is we've become aware that we need to sign a request, or to vote on, and if we approve, sign a request that the water district, or the sewer district rather, article for the warrant being in fact placed on the warrant. And that's here tonight. We can address that when we review the warrant. Aside from that, the agenda is as stands. The next item on the agenda is a public license hearing for liquor licenses. We have two in front of us tonight. One is for the Balmy Days Cruises, which is a Venus and malt liquor application. And the other is Kaler's Crab and Lobster House, which is a malt, spiritus, and Venus application. Both of the applications have been reviewed and initialed by the police chief, and I believe both are renewals.
We're going to take them singly or together?
It's up to you.
Move that we take them together.
Second.
It's been moved that we take them together. All in favor? All right, we're taking them together. Now I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and approved, moved and seconded that we approve them. Any comment from the public? This is a public hearing. Seeing none. Any comment from the selectmen? Nope. All in favor? They are approved. Ongoing business. The first item under ongoing business is the disposition of the tennis courts and what we have come to call Phase 1 plans. This is the, as you saw in the newspaper article recently, this is the two tennis courts that are located in the corner of the school athletic field that are in disrepair. Town-owned property, that's what's town-owned property. They're in disrepair, and the plans that we have discussed are still open for what eventually is going to happen with that. But we would like to take the first steps and have Jody, since he has time and equipment and availability, take the fencing down and take the courts down, and just leave it as a level area. That was not his suggestion.
Right.
For Phase 2. And Phase 2, which we can talk about tonight, will be what we would do with that space. So that's what's in front of us tonight. And I suspect we have interested parties in the audience. So.
I'm sorry, Bill, I couldn't hear you.
I said I suspect we have interested parties in the audience.
Are we allowed to speak now?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
oh,
please.
oh, so-
No. The new rules are that as each agenda item comes up, I will ask, or someone can raise their hand, and they can speak to that agenda item.
And then in public forum, we can go back and beat it to death some more.
Maybe.
Well, I guess I'm George Frank. We are concerned about the tennis courts. I don't know if we need to rush into any one thing. I mean, I don't know if there is a rush. Certainly, the courts are, I mean, if they strung nets up on them tomorrow, somebody would be playing tennis on them, I'm almost certain.
There is one court up, and it would be a tough game.
It may be so, but Peter Gilchrist is there all winter. I got any opportunity that arises, so. But anyway, I think in the spirit of the courts and how and why they were built, I would ask that we maintain them as courts or change the use to some other recreational or athletic venue. I'd hate to see it just plowed in for more parking, which, I mean, you saw it at our comprehensive planning meetings, I mean, we talked about a 60% reduction in kids from Boothbay Harbor attending the school, and a 30% reduction of students overall in the last 10 years. So it's hard in my mind to justify any new parking at the school for any reason. And, you know, I know there's certainly other options for the space that doesn't require parking. I know that it was just probably mentioned offhand, a travel information kiosk that seems to be overkill, especially with everybody having a smartphone these days. I think kiosks are kind of overlooked completely. But anyway, I would just ask that we approach it very slowly and methodically and think it out and don't rush into anything. I don't think any decision should be made before the annual town meeting, and then maybe it would have to be a vote of the town as a whole at that meeting. I don't know if we need to do anything now. Do you think so?
Since Jody has the time and the availability, my position has been, I do think we need to remove those courts. They really are beyond repair. I didn't want to do anything in what we've called phase one that would preclude doing whatever we wanted in phase two. And I don't think what we're talking about does that. That is, I think all our options, we're not paving, we may bring some gravel in to stabilize the drainage and stuff, but they could be turned into basketball courts. I've had 2 or 3 emails suggesting that that's what should be done with them. We've had one letter tonight that a memorial to servicemen ought to be erected on that site. So there are certainly things out there that people have some interest in doing. But since Jody has the time and the availability, I do think it's not unreasonable to go ahead with what we call phase one. But that wouldn't preclude any of the other things. Since
Who wants to go first? Second.
I would also say that the reason the courts were perhaps in the condition they're in is because we as a town weren't committed enough, and the school didn't contribute enough over the years to properly maintain them. We went from being courts that weren't suitable for a tournament because there wasn't 3, to being, as you just said, unsavable. So I hope that anything that we do, we would endeavor to do in a fashion, not just now, but moving forward, to properly maintain them.
that's one of the
I mean, to me, that's the failure right there.
Yeah,
I mean, we got all these parks and really no focus and no guidance as a parks committee or field committee or what have you.
No, I think that's an important point, and that's one of the things we talked with in terms of discussing future use. You can't just build it and leave it. You're going to have a maintenance obligation there, and we have to be able to meet that maintenance obligation if anything's going to come of it. And let me just reiterate, I think you were on travel when we first talked about this a month and a half ago, in terms of the new tennis courts. And I just want to remind everybody that the new tennis courts are operating under the exact same agreement that we had for these tennis courts. That is, they are available for the public, for townspeople and anyone, actually, visitors as well. Anytime they're not being used by the school, the agreement is the exact same agreement. It's just an addendum that moves the courts from that old location to the new location. There's parking up there, and the parking is available, and so that nothing has changed in terms of the ability of the public to use those tennis courts.
Frank Vessa, Boothbay Harbor. 2-part question and observation. Do we know that phase 2 could not possibly be, we want to put tennis courts there?
No?
Okay, and if that's the case, we do decide that we want to put tennis courts, would it not be cheaper to revamp those with the base that they have and everything? And I don't know, or would it be cheaper just to start all over again?
I have been told that it would be cheaper to start over again, that the base is so deteriorated. And part of the issue, as you know, in that corner, there's very poor drainage, and water has gotten in there, and tremendous heat. Now, I haven't researched that to any great extent, but the question has been asked and the answer has been given. It'd be better to start over.
I know we did lose 2 courts. We had 2 courts that we could use up at Overlook, which are now a solar field. And so we did lose 2 courts in the area.
Yeah, those weren't public, though.
Oh, I don't know. I played there and saw everybody playing there. So nobody ever,
I belong to Overlook, and they told me they were Overlook's courts.
oh, okay, well, I'll write you a check. I'm good at doing that. So, anyway, okay, well, it would be, seems silly to tear them apart if we were just gonna.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't want to do anything that's going to preclude what we want to do in the future. We all agree with that.
I agree with George, we don't really need any more, parking's pretty dull, especially in the summer when we need it, because school's in session, so. I'm done.
Okay. Comments from the selectmen?
You know, I agree with you, George. I really do. I think we should really look at the area. And I've had some comments. People have called me anywhere from building a small park there, some trees, and beautify it there to make it better. And, you know, those are the things that people have called me on, the people in town. I'm not all hepped up on parking. I think that's really a gateway into Boothbay Harbor where we can make it into a beautiful place. And we'd like to hear from the more, don't we, Bill?
Absolutely.
From you and everybody else, you know, what we're gonna do with that piece of land. I think it's vital and important. You know, I went down and went with Dave Benner. Went down, that one side is just gonna give out. It's just unsafe. I mean, where the water and everything and where the drainage is. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, George, but the drainage is, it's in bad shape, so.
Well, I think tennis is inherently dangerous anyway, Jay.
Oh.
You take it. I'm not playing with you.
You like tennis?
No,
don't you? They wouldn't let me play.
I hate to use the word safety on tennis.
I know.
You know, it's not like it's a contact sport.
I know.
Any other comments? Yes.
I'm Bob Horn, I'm a tennis buff. I came here 60 years ago to play tennis because I was a counselor at Chewonki, which was a lucky break for me. When I got there, they didn't even have a tennis court, had to build one. And on our days off, we used to come to Boothbay and somebody said there's tennis courts on Squirrel, so that's my history. I've helped the girls, I coach the girls here, and I'm very excited about the new courts. They're excellent courts. My only criticism with them is that you got a lock on the door. And my thinking is that I came from a public town of Winchester, Mass, where we had 14 clay courts that were always open to the public. And they had a huge backboard that was enclosed that was always open. And that's how I got my start, because it was free and it was open. And my recommendation would be, I tried to save the old backboard, but it was a disaster. And I know that in the construction there was no backboard put with the new courts. But a backboard would also survive by being used by any lacrosse players or any kind of physical thing where you have to shoot at somebody. You could put it in a circle. And my other concern is that I don't know why Boothbay doesn't want to have an open all-year basketball court that they can come and play basketball outdoors anytime. Those are my criticisms, and I would recommend that on where the court was, it doesn't bother me. I don't think it's good to have it as parking, because there's plenty of places along the road going into St. Columba's that if you put pipes down, you could park almost all the way up to the principal's office or the superintendent's office along that wall. If you just sunk pipes and covered them up, you'd have a whole pile of parking along there. My guess, I'm not an engineer, but I would love to see, number one, that anybody can play tennis any time of year. That would be my recommendation. And the other one would be that if you have to, if you could, you try to incorporate all of the courts in town and more or less have some kind of relationship with those courts so that you could have summer competitions and summer things going on. I run the tournament called the Horn International on Squirrel. And when I was a kid coming up here, the Northeast New England Tennis Tournament drew from all over the world. Back in the 40s and the 50s, there was a very open tournament, and the two directors from Squirrel would walk around the Longwood Cricket Club when the national doubles teams showed up. And between the national doubles tournament and the Forest Hills National Singles Tournament, the players had a week off. So these two guys would go around and say, do you want to play in a little tournament up in Maine? And my God, we'd get the English Davis Cup team. We had the #6 ranked player in the world who showed up at Squirrel Island to play in our little tournament. One of the guys went back to New York and played in the Nationals, and he had a Squirrel Island t-shirt he was warming up in for the semifinals. I brag about the tennis here, but it's important, I think, that you don't use it for parking. Either basketball or some kind of thing where kids could use it. And that would be just my recommendation. Find parking wherever you could. Parking's the last thing you have to worry about.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I'm sorry I spoke so long. I'm totally deaf. I can't hear anything.
Yes, sir.
Tom Donahue. I just agree with everything he said, 100%.
Okay. So I'm hearing from the public tonight, no parking, and basketball courts would be a good thing.
Excellent.
What's up with the lock?
I don't know, that was news to me.
I was
We
gonna
all,
say-
we all took notes on that.
Took notes on that, yeah.
Sean Pitcher. I like the idea about basketball courts or something along the lines of that for the kids. It's hard enough in a small town for kids to find something to do that doesn't get them in trouble. And the more things that disappear, you know, the less that they have a chance to do. I have 3 kids of my own, and, you know, they're always out, sports, you know, theater,
Yep.
whatever. And it just, something for the kids, you know, because they got a hard enough time as it is, you know, and, you know, if you turn it into like a basketball court or something like that, because there's not a lot of places for the kids to play basketball anymore, you know, and, you know, the Y, it's always busy, so a lot of times, you know, you can't go in and use the Y. So just, you know, something for the kids.
Okay,
You know, whether it's basketball or something else, you know, give them an option of instead of sitting home in front of their iPads, you know, to have a place to go to play basketball or, you know, do something else, you know, just to, you know, keep them from sitting home and playing video games. You know, just something for the kids.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So I think what's before the selectmen tonight is to either vote to go ahead and dismantle the current courts with the clear understanding that we are leaving our options open for what to do in the future, although we've heard a strong pitch for basketball courts, or to do nothing. Is that not correct?
I didn't follow that from this conversation. I just thought we were going to leave it alone until the annual town meeting.
That's what you suggested. What was on the reason this was on the agenda is that Public Works had said he had time and availability to go ahead and do this phase 1. And we should either do that, it makes some sense, or we could take your suggestion and do nothing.
I'm looking at the agenda right now, and it just says phase 1 plans.
Right, the phase 1 plans was to remove
Tear it down.
tear it
The
down.
article in the paper last night, it didn't say phase 1, you know, destroy the tennis courts.
Well, understand that.
So, I mean, there might be more of a crowd here had they known that phase 1 meant destruction.
Well, with all due respect, George, we've been talking about this for the past couple of meetings.
You told me yourself, Denise,
So-
that you were never going to take those tennis courts out.
I never said
You also
that.
told me up there that the new tennis courts were built with donated money. We know that not to be true.
Wow.
Pardon my skepticism, indeed. The board said, what do you mean? What do you mean? It was a donated money. $300,000 the school department spent to build those tennis courts.
George, that's not the issue in front of us right now.
Correct, it's not.
So
I guess the issue is,
join
you're
the
gonna tear them
2%?
out, is that it, Bill? I just want to be on the record.
Whatever we do there, there's going to have to be site work. And it might make some sense to do the site work now before we get into the midst of the tour season. That's all.
One of the things that sort of factored into this too is that Public Works has got an awful lot on their plate right now with the cold storage building, that's one of the referendum items coming up, with finishing the Fish Pier project. These tennis courts are one of them. The Route 27 sidewalk, they're going to get involved in that process in some form or another. And we've got Bike Main coming to that location in September. It would be nice to at least have that space available for them to use for the Bike Main event.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean we're in any great rush to put anything in, to backfill that spot, but it also gives us more space for that event. So, I mean, that's a consideration as well.
Okay. How does the select board feel?
I think what we've said in the past, what we've heard in the past anyway, is that the tennis courts in their current condition are dangerous to play on. And that's one of the motivations for us wanting to do something sooner rather than later. Now, I guess, Tom, are you saying that Jody has more than enough to do right now and can't
Well, this
take
is
the
just...
tennis courts on?
No,
or-
in fact, he wants to do it sooner or later, because his
Yeah.
other projects are farther out in the season.
Okay.
He's going to have a window of opportunity to do this relatively soon. If he doesn't get to do this, we'd probably have to lock those, because we don't want people in there, tripping and hurting themselves on that court. So I would suggest the board at least vote to remove those now and figure out what you're going to do with it later. There's no immediate rush for that.
I think that's the direction that we were headed in, yes. So, do we need a motion?
I think we probably should have one.
So I move that we remove the current tennis courts and leave them in
Remove the
some
surface.
condition.
Remove the surface. What we're planning to do is just grade it over and maybe on the back part grass it in until we figure out what we're going to do with it. But make it nice and make it presentable until we figure out what we're going to do with it. I don't want it to be an eyesore all summer long.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
what we haven't budgeted,
Hey, let's do our business, and you'll have another opportunity to talk.
So the motion then is to remove the tennis court surface and fence and leave that surface in an attractive condition.
Right, in a stable condition.
Stable condition, that's probably good words. Yeah.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
we don't know if anybody's going to approve any money to do anything other than just destroy it. Have you appropriated any money to rebuild them for anything?
Is it in the budget?
We put it in the budget for next season, yep.
It hasn't been voted on.
Correct.
That's right.
So, we don't
Yeah.
know. So what will end up happening is it's gonna be destroyed. After that, we don't know what's gonna
Correct.
happen. It just may be a gravel lot.
Which would be better than the degraded tennis courts.
Oh, I disagree.
Okay. Mike?
Bill, may I make just a suggestion? If there's questions about the condition and servability, would you care to do a site visit?
We've done
We've done it.
3 site visits.
Very good. Okay, great. Then we just have a difference in opinion. Okay.
Mike,
I
can
recall
you,
seeing a site visit going
can,
on there, then coming to a selectmen's meeting and
I don't-
been told there was no site visit, so.
I don't-
Again, pardon my skepticism.
can you refresh our memory as to what the walkability team suggested in terms of the towns or the region's needs?
Sure. There's, I happen to have a list of 32 items that came out of the walkability audit that was back in October of 2012. And while these are broad, general comments, they can be narrowed down and focused to specific areas. Places, is one area, is one category that Dan Burden in his recommendations made, and that's things like adding benches and picnic tables, building parks, drinking fountains, bike racks, bike-friendly maps, interesting areas to exercise and sit, develop walking paths. So that kind of comes under the idea of places, whether it's a tennis court, a basketball court, a park course, which are those little exercise courses with different stations. There was a category called Gateway, and that's design a plan to enhance the gateway down the entire length of Route 27 from Route 1 to Southport. And then a bit more specifically, redevelop a visual gateway at selected areas. For example, like the Boothbay Common, the entrance to Boothbay Harbor, down by the footbridge. I've heard the question posed to me, where does Boothbay Harbor begin? Is it at the first sign that's just past the Russell House? Is it, at the second sign where you head up towards the Congo Church? I know that in the comp plan, this last meeting, we talked about that we don't have any design standards, that there's a different look and feel for that commercial area. And so maybe this is an opportunity for us to develop that space, whatever the outcome is, tennis courts, basketball, park, something that we haven't yet thought of, but to do it in that mind. I think this is outstanding. We've got a great amount of public comment. I can't wait to see when we release the comp plan for public comment as well. So this is great that there's a lot of passion about it. But the keys to answer your question are kind of general in that making visual areas that are attractive, that complement the nature of the community and support the people. And if there are interests, to support those interests.
Thanks, Mike. Any other comments from the selectmen? I guess my personal feeling is I think that 2 derelict tennis courts would be less appealing than a properly graded and grassed area, and so I intend to vote in favor of this motion. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The next item under ongoing business is the walkability status, and we turn the floor over to Mike Tomko again.
Never supposed to follow a better comedian. Thanks very much. I wanted just to give the board and town members just a brief update on what's been happening with the branding initiative for the region. This goes back to 2012 when we had the walkability audit, which was an assessment of basically the downtown Boothbay Harbor area. And the ideas that came out of it were ways to improve the livability for the community. And one of the items that came out of that was to talk about developing a regional brand, and the idea that a brand is a good community economic development tool. To that end, we've had a series of meetings, and we've had proposals gone out for brand work to be done by marketing company. There were 16 responses that came back, and it narrowed down to 2, and the committee has selected one that we felt has a possibility of giving a superior brand for the area. Right now, the proposal for that has come in at $6,625. Out of that, the town of Boothbay Harbor has already donated $1,000 to this initiative, of which we've already spent $500 for research. There was a $2,000 grant that I wrote and received from the county to support this initiative, so we have $2,500 in the bank. Since then, we've received $1,000 from the town of Boothbay, as well as a matching $1,000 from the Chamber of Commerce, and then a private donation from a large business in town of $1,000. So we basically have $5,500 in the bank account on our way to $6,625. There are also other funds that are coming in as well, and this represents a collection of funds from public, from private, and nonprofits in the area. So this has brought support from Southport all the way up to Edgecombe. We've So tonight, the question I have for the selectmen is, there's a contract that needs to be signed to continue to go forward. And I'd like to know if the selectmen are comfortable in authorizing someone, whether it's yourselves, the town manager, myself, to be able to sign this contract. We have sufficient funds to cover the initial start, and we have the promise that the funds to complete the contract will be on hand for us. That's my first question.
The Walkability Study Group is not a sufficient organization to contract?
I'm not sure. I can tell you that the Chamber has agreed to sign the contract. The Friends of Midcoast Maine has agreed to sign the contract. I'd personally be happy to sign the contract, and our selected consultant is fine with me signing the contract. But I think it should come from something other than an individual. I think it should have the...
No, it shouldn't be an individual, it should be an organization. But, so there is no, the Walkability Group has not formed any official organization.
Other than appointing me as the chair and having representation
Okay.
from
All
all
right.
the towns.
All right. I have some thoughts, but others should speak.
No, I don't have any real thoughts as to which way it should go, but the whole idea here was that this is a piece of work where we're going to try to get a logo or a brand developed that is going to be used by the entire region, hopefully from Edgecombe all the way to Southport with some signage. So it's a great cooperative regional project.
Thanks, Denise, yes. And there's a series of 6 meetings that we've identified with a schedule to be able to produce these. And the chosen consultant has said that it's more about the schedule from our standpoint that will keep things, that'll set the pace than the designers. The designers said they can have something to us in probably about 30 days with revisions and iterations. It's more up to us to meet and to roll out and to get feedback.
You know my push. I want to see signs up this season.
Right. So basically, the next step is point of contact and someone to sign the contract.
Okay.
So, Mike, the contract is to do what exactly again?
The contract is to develop a logo, a tag, and a tagline that represents the region based on the work that's already been done through the walkability audit and through the values and vision workshop that was held this past October at the YMCA, and the survey that was done that had nearly 150 respondents and produced a lot of paperwork.
Right. And is the contract written at this point? Or?
Yes.
Is there provision in there for some review along the way? Some collaboration?
Yes, there's the initial. Let's see. I'm sorry. The initial designs. There's going to be 3 to 5 that are going to be produced. There's going to be review of those. Again, with revisions on those up to 5, and there'll be 3 rounds of revisions along the way. There'll be a community presentation, and then an ultimate rollout. And then the final step would be to have this information hosted on a website where business members and the town and citizens can go and use the design standards that come with this logo, and to be able to download it and to apply and use it. So it'll be there for everyone to be able to use.
Will for the contract, are we liable, say they go with the buddies for that?
It's a good question. Thanks, Jay. There are, basically the contract's for a little over $6,600. Our ultimate goal is to have around $8,500 in the bank. And that seems doable through all the other individuals I've spoken to in the other towns for money that can come in. So what that does is that leaves us enough money for a contingency as well as to work on a rollout. But we've also been told by the consultant that if nothing more comes in than the $6,625, they promise that they will stick to that amount.
If the chamber has already agreed to sign the contract, why do you think we're a better location for the contract, or do you?
Not that I think that you're a better, but this is where the original funds have been deposited. The town, this is really where things started with the walkability audit. We have an account on hand here that Julia has set up. It seemed like the natural fit.
Okay.
But we're certainly not limited to it having to be through here.
You just want to make sure that everybody is kind of on board with whatever approach we take.
Exactly.
Doesn't really matter.
Okay. I'm certainly on board with this whole project, as you know. I support it strongly. I have a little reluctance in perhaps putting the taxpayers at risk in signing a contract for more money than we have in hand. So I wouldn't be inclined to do that. I'd happily sign the contract for the $5,500 that you have in hand. But I think it's kind of wrong to obligate the taxpayers without going through any town meeting or anything for that additional $1,000, which we would be doing, right, if we signed a contract.
I have been given personal guarantees that to cover, so, but I understand.
I understand.
And I also understand that a town doesn't run, you pay for things before money's in, back and forth, so I leave it to you guys. If it's something that the town is not comfortable with, then the chamber has said they're willing to step forward, even Friends of Midcoast Maine has, so no one views it as a problem. Just up to you.
Everybody
guys.
more comfortable with the chamber? Is everybody happy with that approach?
I'm more happy with the chamber.
Well, then, let's go with the chamber. Everybody's happy with that.
It's fine, sure. I think it's an
That works
opportunity
for me.
for the town to embrace it, but if...
I'm worried about the liability, Mike. If something happens, fails, who's responsible? We sign that contract.
Well, then,
The legal part of it, I'm looking at.
I find that people that are at risk do an extra hard job of making sure that things happen.
But
So,
things can happen.
Yeah, listen, there's no question you have support of this project.
Sure. Oh, yeah,
And if
sure,
you were in the
absolutely.
lurch, I think we would probably take that risk, but since you're not in the lurch, you got another body that can sign the contract, and it's a regional effort, and it's a regional body, so in some sense, there's some fit there as well. Why don't we just do that?
sure. Good.
And I'm in favor of what we're doing, that walkability too, Mike. It's not that, it's just,
Right.
I'm worried about the liability and the taxpayer.
I understand what you're saying. That's great. The next, great. So I will approach the chamber. We'll have the contract signed, and I have a schedule, a draft schedule that I can give to you guys.
I'd love to see it, yeah.
Yes, we,
You don't have to give it to me now, but
Okay. I'll just say it's here.
That's
Give it
good.
to you before the night's over. That's basically it. It's then start rolling out. The design consultant has says that there's more than enough data between the workshops and the surveys to, he feels, produce a quality item. But there's room in the plan that if they feel that there isn't enough, to be able to go out and hit the community and to give
I look
them-
forward to seeing results and seeing signs up.
I do too. Great. Is there anyone else with questions?
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Under ongoing business, I would suggest that we now address the job descriptions for the Public Works Department. There are 4 of them. We all have copies of them. They've been reviewed with our consultant. They've been reviewed with the employees. They've been reviewed with the Director of Public Works. And I take some responsibility for us having lost the bubble on this, because I was supposed to go and edit them and get them back, and we got overtaken by events. I did read through these and edit them, and I do have a suggested amendment to these, which is fairly simple and straightforward. Let me suggest that I move that we approve these 4 job descriptions with the following change. That is, under the second to last bullet under general expectations, which currently reads, maintain confidence and protect the town by keeping information concerning town operations confidential, should be consistent with what we approved for the police department, and it should read, maintain confidence and protect the town by adequately protecting confidential information. That is confidential information wherever it occurs, not just in operations. And with that change, I would suggest that we approve these. I so move.
I second it.
Any further discussion on these?
I don't think so.
All in favor? They have been approved.
Pass down your wording for me.
I can.
Okay. Thank you.
It's the same wording that's in what we've already approved for the
Okay.
police.
All right.
Yep. That concludes ongoing business. We're now moving to new business, and the first item under new business is the cold storage building status. And I'm just looking for a little
Yep.
update. from
All I
Tom.
have to report on that is that there's an RFP currently running in the Boothbay Register, the Wiscasset paper, and Lincoln County News, requesting bids for the Public Works Storage Building. Someone was in today to pick up a bid package. Prior to the bids coming back, there will be site visits with the potential bidders to answer any questions they have with that. There's a full bid package of 3 or 4 pages and designs of the building as well as part of the package. And the bids are due back here April 4th. And that's as far as we've gotten so far. And in the meantime, Public Works is preparing to remove some of the belongings that are in that building and store them in the other building and pretty much any nook and cranny they can find in order to make preparations to do that.
And just to remind people, this was approved at last annual town meeting, so we are just getting ahead with this now because we've had so much else on our plate with the fish pier and other things. But this has already been through town meeting and been approved. I don't have any other questions. Anybody else? The next item under new business is approval of the election clerks. This comes from the town clerk, from Michelle. And you all have copies of the 2014-2016 election clerk proposed appointments from Republicans, Democrats, unenrolled, and moderator and deputy moderator for our meetings, and wardens for elections. And I don't think we need to read all of the names, right?
No.
So I would entertain a motion.
Move we approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
That will help greatly with town meeting. Thank you.
The next item under new business is the Spirit of America nominations. It's that time of year again. Let me just, we have an email from Bruce Flaherty. Let me just read a couple of parts of it. It says, your Board of Selectmen is asked to pick the local person, project, or group to receive the 2014 Boothbay Harbor Spirit of America Foundation tribute for outstanding community service using your own criteria to honor the recipient, presumably with a resolution or proclamation. We'll need to know about the recipient to facilitate the November event honoring all 2014 Spirit of America Award winners throughout Lincoln County. They're hoping to have the name by April 30th for this year's award. You'll recall last year the award was given to the Rowe Sisters for their work in helping to beautify the footbridge. So it's on the agenda simply to get our antenna up and to thinking about nominations, and I would ask the public to think about nominations for this award, to recognize someone or some group who's put together lots of outstanding community service for our town. Other than that, I don't have anything on this issue.
Well, I
George?
recommend you nominate yourselves. Nominate yourselves for the new tennis court you're going to build us.
Thank you. I'll take that into consideration.
Nice. Second the nomination.
Anybody else?
We just did it. Were we behind in doing that this year?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
I mean,
late
because
for the last one.
when did we do that? It was like November?
Yeah, and that's when this one is too, but I think it took us a while to come up with a name.
Right,
I think we're a little ahead of the curve with this one.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Time flies, Russ.
Apparently. It's been a long winter.
The next item under new business is warrant review and approval. You've all received copies of the warrant for review. And we need to either accept it or make changes and approve it. Tom, I had a question. We have under Article 4 a warrant article to authorize us to carry forward the funding for the cold storage building. But also in Article 14, there's a sort of a blanket authorization to carry forward. Do those two overlap, or did we put it on the warrant just because of the magnitude of it?
Well, we put it on there to be specific.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. The only other comment that I had was under Article 21, which reads, to see if the town will vote to and raise and appropriate up to $134,380 and to transfer up to $34,107 from the current fiscal year's general fund for a total of $168,487 for the ambulance service account. These amounts to be dispersed upon receipt of quarterly reports of expenses and revenue. Followed by the statement, Selectmen and Budget Committee recommend $134,380. My concern is that town meeting might be a little confused by seeing the two numbers in the warrant article and only the one number in the recommendation. And I guess I would prefer to see, and the board may agree or disagree, that we also recommend both numbers in the recommendation. So that the recommendation would read, Selectmen and Budget Committee recommend raising and appropriating $134,380 and transferring $34,107, to make it clear that we're authorizing the full amount that the ambulance requested.
Yep.
And agree, disagree?
That's fine.
Isn't that the
That was our
article that
intent.
you?
That was our
Yeah.
intent.
Right.
Yeah, but there are two parts to it. There's the article, and then there has to be a recommendation from the Selectmen and Budget Committee. And the
It's
recommendation
the top part.
didn't exactly mirror the article, and I'm suggesting that it
Okay.
should.
Yeah, right.
I-
You okay
I'm
with
good
that?
Yes. I
Okay.
move we accept the warrants with your amended wording for Article 21.
21, yeah.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's done. That brings us to public forum. Oh, I take it back. Excuse me. We need to, also under the warrant, we need to vote to include the article requested by the sewer district that reads, do you favor the Boothbay Harbor Sewer District accepting a loan/grant assistance package from the United States Department of Agriculture Rural Development in the amounts of $275,000 loan and $125,000 grant for the purpose of relining the sewer lines on Commercial Street and Commercial Street Extension. So we as selectmen need to vote to put this on the warrant. We are not endorsing or not endorsing the warrant, the question itself. We are simply voting to put this on the warrant. So I would accept a motion.
I move to put it on the warrant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we put this motion on the warrant.
So that will go on the warrant, and it will have no impact on taxes.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Should it say something like that?
Well, it's
The-
a sewer
the mo-
district referendum question,
Yeah.
so it'll be clear that it's not a municipal. I mean, we do all the municipal
Yeah, and-
financial stuff at the Saturday.
Yeah, I think it's clear. Any further discussion? All in favor? It passes. Now, we are ready for public forum. Wayne?
Wayne Dawson. A little bit concerned, there's a proposal out right now for 32 parking spaces, parking lot on Campbell Street, and it's a special residential neighborhood, and it's already been approved by Tom Wooden and Jeff Smith They've granted them permission, they haven't gone ahead with the start of it yet. But I don't think it meets the zoning requirements at all.
Can I just clarify? I mean, I haven't approved anything. That's code enforcement.
Okay, I got a piece of paper that says you did.
I don't know what that's from, but I don't have anything to do
It
with
came
code
from the town
enforcement.
office, it said you and Jeff did. I'm pretty sure James right on it.
Well, either way, I don't have any authority to approve
Okay.
code enforcement. So I know that there has been a lot of discussion about that in that neighborhood, and Jeff's opinion is that that is a permitted use, and he has explained to the people that have been communicating back and forth with him at great length what the appeal process is.
He says, and in there, there's a piece in there about a petition that's coming out. It's stated that there is a little bit of that. 90% of that property is special residential, it's not allowed. And the plan that's on that, right on the front of that, it shows the measurements, and if you measure it, they're way short, it would even be in that way.
Well, that's
But
why he's
there's quite a few in
explained.
the neighborhood that's pretty upset about it. And I don't think we should have been able to give permission without anybody knowing about it.
Well, that's why there's an appeals process.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
nobody would have known about this. It wasn't, nobody voted on it, the selectmen don't know. It just goes out there and says, okay, do it.
Definitely
Yeah, it's
not
not-
the residents
not a
don't
selectmen
find out
issue,
anything
right.
about it. That's for sure.
And as a group, two people bought it, or have a purchase agreement on it. Once they get there, right, they hope to, they're gonna start their own little corporation, so they get away with it. And there's no, well, there is not, I've heard tonight from somebody from Southport, there's no parking problems around here. Yeah, Squirrel Island. I don't see the big problem with it, but if you look at an overhead of the whole thing up there, it's a neighborhood, it's not a parking lot.
You know, it's funny, Wayne, it depends what time of the year you ask that question.
Yeah,
If you ask that in July and August, we have a parking problem.
yeah.
Oh, I'm hearing July and August.
Only if
Plenty
you-
of
only if
property
you're
for
not
sale
willing to pay.
make the parking lot look
If it's willing to
swell.
pay, can find a place to park.
First of all, Wayne, Jeff Smith has signed this, but I don't, in fact, see Tom's name on this anywhere. The problem I have is I don't think this is a select board issue. The zoning is in the code enforcement office, and for a normal building permit, it does not, in fact, come before us or come before the planning board. And we have the head of the planning board here who can speak to this better than I can. So I think the process that has been followed is the correct process. And if you think it does not meet our land use codes, then absolutely you should appeal it.
It's gonna be appealed, it's
Yeah.
gonna go to the Supreme Court if it has to.
No
go.
doubt about it. It will be a big-
Then that's the right thing to do. And I understand your concern, and I, thank you for bringing it here, and you'll get some publicity so that people do become aware of it, and that's the right thing to
It could
do.
happen in anybody's neighborhood, I guess.
Yeah,
Especially
yeah.
if you don't, there's no
Right.
permit process for it.
Well, I mean, there is a permit. Well, there's a judgment by the code enforcement
Only by the
office.
code enforcement person.
Yeah.
If he says go ahead and do it, then
Yeah.
there's nobody else gets to speak on it.
Yeah, but that's the way standard permits operate. I mean, you know that better than I. Yes, sir.
O'Connell. I live County Corner, across from this soon-to-be 32-space parking lot on Campbell Street, our residential neighborhood. And there's some larger concepts here at stake, which is, I think, why we're here today, to kind of alert you and the public to the fact that there's an inadequacy maybe in the zoning.
Yeah, I know, I got that.
That we're talking about, most of the zoning, you're thinking residential, you're thinking of people living in places, or maybe commercial is a different issue. But to come into a neighborhood and put a 32-space parking lot in between people's houses, it just,
Crazy.
it's just not neighborly.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And I like Squirrel Isle people. I go there on a novelty once in a while. to
Yeah.
kind of visit, so to speak, from the boat. But, it's another neighborhood coming into our neighborhood
Yeah.
to convenience themselves at our convenience, our inconvenience, rather. So,
Yeah.
We put the parking lot in front of your home.
We have safety issues with traffic, children,
Yeah.
6 small children on that street.
There's
Yeah.
lots of issues, but the
Yeah.
issue, I think, is that we just want to bring it to your attention. Conceptually, it doesn't fit Boothbay
No,
Harbor.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the larger issue that it is perhaps a permitted use under the current zoning bylaws, in which case we have a hole in our zoning bylaws that we should address.
Right.
And I'm sure the chairman of the planning board has taken note of this.
Well, I live 2 houses up from that, and I grew up on that street. And my kids ride bikes up and down there all the time, as do other kids.
Yeah.
And you know what's gonna happen when they start putting that in, the kids are gonna ride their bikes in there, they're gonna get in trouble. Then they're gonna post the land, then they're gonna have somebody probably watching it, and then all hell's gonna break loose, all because these people wanted to park, you know, up there. You know what I mean? You know, the safety issue is unreal. I mean, right there at that intersection, you know, where everybody stops. You're talking about more cars coming through.
Yeah.
People walk up and down that road day and night in
Without
the
any
spring and the
sidewalks or
summer.
anything
That's
else.
right, there's no sidewalks.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, the first time somebody's car that's parked in that parking lot gets, you know, broken into or something like that, you know what I mean? It goes beyond, you know, just like a zoning thing, you know, it's a safety thing. There's a lot of legal aspects into it. But for me, my biggest thing is, you know, the kids that are playing on that road, you know, day and night. You know, it's not a place for, you know, a parking lot or other people, you know, that are out on Squirrel Island and then they leave at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, we have to live there day and
Sure, there's
night.
liability issues for the town, I would guess. But the point is, we don't want somebody to get hurt to have a liability issue. Come on. And we can prevent it by simply
Yeah.
making adjustments, appropriate adjustments that don't allow parking lots to go up into our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Fred Camplin, 24 Summit Road in Boothbay and 48 Sunny Acres Lane in Boothbay Harbor. And I've been a summer resident my family's been a summer resident of Boothbay Harbor since 1968. And 24 Summit Road, we look down laterally on a very clear view of what I hope will not be a 36, 34, 36 car parking lot. I do wear sunglasses in the summer, but from my deck, I would certainly have to have even darker sunglasses as the sun reflects on those car roofs. Yeah, obviously, there are lots of issues here, of course, and I think the intent of all of us who are here this evening is to bring them to the general attention of the selectmen who already are aware of some of the issues, of course, but to put a human face on the issues for the moment and to speak to the Boothbay Register as well. There are two things that I want to stress, and two aspects of this that I want to stress. One is that the loophole that apparently is in the zoning code for residential areas, and I did talk at some length to Jeff Smith about this, and Jeff Smith is very sympathetic to the point of view of the residents. His obligation, of course, is to take the zoning law rules literally,
Right.
and objectively, without taking into account a human component as he looks at them. But apparently, it's clear that to most of us that there's a loophole in the zoning regulations, because if it is the case that the Squirrel Island people can purchase property in a residential area and create a 36-car parking lot, then it would mean that any business, I don't know if it has to be a nonprofit organization or not, but even a for-profit business can easily create a subsidiary that's and label it legally created as a nonprofit, can purchase property in a residential zone and do what it pleases with it under the current regulations. That's I think something that the residents of Boothbay Harbor who live in here and in lovely neighborhoods and enjoy the quality of life here should be and will be concerned about. So that loophole needs to be addressed.
Yeah, no,
In the
I,
meantime, my second point is that, look, we all know Squirrel Island is a lovely place. And the people who have created over the last 100 years the Squirrel Island community, and the families that carry on that community, are environmentally and aesthetically sensitive people. You know it when you step off the boat onto Squirrel Island itself and walk around. They would not be happy if anyone found a loophole in which allowed a parking lot, of course, out of the question, no cars on Squirrel, but some equal aesthetic and environmental offense to their happy community. So I think it's really very desirable in this one instance to bring to the attention of the Squirrel Island people that even though we sympathize with their parking issue in regard to where they leave their cars when they go out to the island, we hope that they will put themselves in our shoes, just as we can put ourselves in their shoes, and they will not proceed with this project, which is flagrantly in disregard of what clearly are their own values, and which can obviously not make friends for them in the Boothbay Harbor community. And they, I think, do want to be our friends, as we are their friends as well.
very well said, sir. Thank you. Any other?
If I may, one
Yes, sir.
further thought. It's my understanding that they've either applied for or are going to apply for a demolition permit to raise the building that's there and take away a trailer, et cetera. And I just think that it'd be nice to hold up on a decision on that while we pursue this process of appeal. If you have any influence in that regard.
Do you know the status of that, Tom?
No, I don't know. I'll have to talk to Jeff about it.
Okay.
I know there's an appeals meeting Monday, I believe it is.
Thank you.
All right.
You know, I live in a special residential neighborhood, and a few years back, a fellow wanted to buy a house and raise it and create parking, and it was disallowed then. Tim Lewis did a fine job. But the loophole that I think that they're avoiding here is that they're not calling it a pay to park. And that
Yeah.
even if you pay a fee or an association fee.
We're probably getting ahead of ourselves, but that's what came to my mind. Certainly a commercial venture is not permitted.
So this approval from the code enforcement officer may be erroneous. If it's tried.
Yeah, clearly a commercial operation is not permitted, and so if this is a commercial operation in disguise or so forth, then there's grounds to look at that. And this is just my personal speculation, I don't want to bias anything or get ahead of ourselves, but I understand
Segue
that.
into the tennis courts. What,
George, the tennis court discussion is over. I'd be happy to talk with you after the, George,
what type of permit
George,
do you need to raise those?
the tennis court discussion is over. I'd be happy to talk with you after the meeting.
Only kid.
Yes,
I know,
according to Jeff Smith, the loophole is, as referred to, and the zoning code allows any use of a property as long as it's not for commercial purposes. But however, it seems to me quite logical that a town business could purchase any property in a residential area and turn it into a parking lot. Right, as long as it does not charge for the use of the parking spaces, just as Grover's and Hannaford, they don't charge for the use of the park. So the loophole is, you could drive a big truck through it.
No, I understand your point. Anyone else?
Just can't leave them.
So I think we all think that this doesn't sound like a good idea to put a parking lot in the middle of a neighborhood.
Thank you.
So,
Yes.
Very bad.
Thank you.
I think you should let it go through its process.
Yeah,
The
and
process
so,
is the
so the
appeals.
process is the
Yeah.
appeal.
Is there an
We don't make
appeal
that decision.
scheduled
Which is the 7th?
Monday.
April 7th.
April 7th?
A week from Monday.
I will plan on attending.
Thank you.
Me too.
And let me also thank all of you for presenting your case clearly, civilly, and in a forthright manner. That really helps things.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, the only thing I say is that I appreciate everybody coming and talking with us about, and I think the way to go is appeals. And then go through that process, and I'll be the 7th, isn't it?
7th.
Yes,
yeah.
7th.
Yeah, I'll go. See what's going on.
I agree, of course, that the appeals process is necessary to move ahead with, but wouldn't it be even equally desirable if some liaison with the Squirrel Island people could be somehow affected, in which they would enter into a discussion of a harmonious and very civil kind, based on mutual respect, in which they could get a fuller sense of the implications of what it is they're planning, or at least seriously thinking of going ahead with. And is there any way of creating that kind of informal, if you will, or semi-official or semi-informal avenue of communication?
Should be.
I would think there would be, but I don't, in my mind, that isn't a function of the town.
Right.
I think anytime the town gets involved, it becomes formal. And so it would seem to me more prudent to form a neighborhood association and approach the folks out on Squirrel Island with that. I don't think that, as much as I like to get on these guys, I don't think that that's a function of the town can't be getting into negotiation between neighbors. They gotta go by the book, and that's, and we write the book, by the way.
And you know, part of that's accomplished by the appeals process, because we've only got one side in the room right now. I
Yeah.
mean, it'd be nice to have the people proposing this
It
here.
goes to a town
They
vote,
could-
there's
they
what,
could
3,000
communicate.
town voters, or maybe,
Sure.
Yeah, 600.
That's an interest.
That's cool.
Sorry, somebody wants to destroy.
Yes, sir.
It's, appreciate the selectmen's reaction to this whole thing. It's just, I don't know, probably enough said. But my question is, where do they park now? Is there some reason they need to abandon some place and look for a safer place in the neighborhood? Is that some of the, I have no idea where those 32 spaces are now that they must have.
It's it's probably overflow. They have the parking on Atlantic Avenue.
I know that.
And I think that, you know, I just look at my own family as an example.
And on the other
You know,
side.
everybody has, everybody who's 16 years old and over has a car now. And so it's just, everybody has more vehicles than they did 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Okay. I'll accept that, but I'm just not sure there's not more to it than meets the eye.
I don't know.
I don't know.
As we go along,
I doubt it.
undoubtedly more information will come forth. Public forum, any other topics? Going once, going twice?
that's quick.
The next item on the agenda is an executive session under MRSA Section 405-6D to discuss labor negotiations. So I would ask that we clear the room. We've been informed, although there was the first meeting of contract negotiations today, there was really nothing to report, so we don't need to go into executive session. I know. If I could have you guys quiet for just a few more minutes, we'll be done. Then you can talk to your heart's content. Next item is warrants. I would entertain a motion.
Move we approve the warrants upon
Careful
review.
review. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the warrants upon review. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? The next item on the agenda is a motion to adjourn.
Move, we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. There can be no discussion on this item. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all.